Good evening and many thanks for watching KTN News. My name is Dennis Aseta. Today we have special coverage and today we want to talk about something that is bedeviling the world over. Not just Kenya, although in Kenya it is a daily problem. Every day on the news we see something that touches on this problem, and this is corruption. Now, corruption continues to be a problem not only in Kenya but across the world. This is an ongoing concern that has seen several bodies come together to address the problem and ensure that our societies are free from this vice that continues to rob Kenyans on a daily basis. Now, on 9th of December, EACC will lead Kenyans in commemoration of the International Anti-Corruption Day. Just what does this day mean? And what are some of the wins to celebrate and areas to improve on as the country and the world celebrate this day? In studio with me is Jackson Mwe, Director of Field Services and Coordination Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, and Ms. Charity Kagwe, Head of Crime Prevention, Criminal Justice and Anti-Corruption Program, Eastern Africa, UNODC. Karibuni sana as we have this conversation. And I'll come to you, Director, just on the onset. Many Kenyans hear about corruption on a daily basis, but let's make sense of this corruption. If you hear that a governor has, there's allegations that a governor has embezzled 200 million shillings, what would this mean to a Kenyan who's being affected by this stolen money?
Thank you, Dennis, for having me. And good evening, viewers. Let me reflect on what you have just put across, but allow me just before I digest on what 200 million shillings can do, just to take this opportunity and say on the 9th, we will be commemorating the International Anti-Corruption Day. This is a day which was designated by the UN General Assembly for purposes of bringing the world together to take stock on what the various stakeholders, the various state parties, and Kenya is a state party because Kenya has ratified the United Nations Convention Against Corruption back in 2003. And considering it is now 20 years, the theme for this year is UNICAC at 20. Basically what the state parties, basically all the countries that have ratified the convention, will be commemorating, taking stock of what has been done over the years. The requirement by the convention is to do a number of things, both to come up with both the legal framework for containing corruption in the various countries, and also to set up the institutional framework to fight corruption in the various countries. In Kenya, that has been done. Various laws have been enacted to enable the fight against corruption. We have at the top of it, we have our constitution which has recognized corruption as a problem and then dedicated a chapter 6 of the constitution, and specifically Article 79, which now gives the basis for establishment of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, a body which is a specialized agency to contain the problem of corruption. It can't do it alone. Now, that having been done, an institution will not be able to do that without the necessary laws. We have the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act. We have the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission Act. We have the Leadership and Integrity Act. We have the Bribery Act of 2016 and many other laws. Why do we have a prerogative of all these laws? All these laws are intended to contain the different facets of corruption. Coming specifically to what is happening across the country, because the question you have put is what 200 million shillings would do. And I want to say this is a problem which cuts across. It's not only in the counties, but also in the national government. Corruption is found in every area where resources exist, because corruption basically follows resources. When we are talking about 200 million shillings, looking at our economy today, 200 million shillings will be sufficient funding to build a public school, to build a public hospital, to do a few kilometers of a good road, to Maram, some reasonable distance of a road, which can make life better for the citizens. And therefore, when you hear such resources have been taken by an individual, what the implication of that is, those resources have been removed from the public use, and therefore the service which was intended to be provided by that service basically stands unprovided. Considering spending of public resources goes through budget cycles, you would expect if money is budgeted for in a specific financial year to carry out certain projects. If that project is not implemented, it will not be easy to have resources provided in a subsequent year. And therefore you find that service is denied to the public for a prolonged period of time.
And I'll come to you, Charity. Now, when the director says that we have a plethora of laws that are in there, and we have what 200 million shillings could do. Now, as UNODC, you are great partners to EACC when it comes to such issues. So what is your mandate? How do you support EACC for them to be able to achieve their aspirations and making sure that Kenya is a corruption and graft-free country?
So thank you, Dennis, and thank you for inviting us here. This is a big occasion for us. UNODC is the secretariat of the convention, meaning we monitor the convention, we support member states. Amongst the family of nations, after the General Assembly passed this, this treaty was passed, member states then signed and ratified, and ratifying, they made some commitments. So we support them in reaching those commitments. The law, the legal framework, when it comes to prevention, education, I think, as you were saying, sometimes there's a lack of understanding how this money affects the person on the ground. And in this region, for example, when you say you give 50 shillings, not even 200 million, to jump the line, what is the effect on the country, on the society? And when you come down to that, it means service delivery. It's the abuse of office by a public official for his own personal gain at the expense of other people. So if I don't have my 50 shillings, you jump me, you jump the line. It could be in the hospital, public hospital. You could have a serious disease and you need to be treated. Unfortunately, you will not get that treatment. And we find this kind of mentality accepted amongst Kenyans. And everybody says, you know, it's just a little bit. How does that impact anybody? It does. It impacts the most vulnerable of all of us. And so our job is to work, of course, with EACC, who are mandated to look into the areas of, support the legal system, the other prosecution, investigation. So what we do is support them with technical expertise when we can, support them through funding, that is through different countries, also support them in the review mechanism, not just support them, but support the entire justice sector. Because you can see right now, despite the fact that we have all these cases coming up, it's good that it's happening because now people can see, and there's a lot of ownership by leadership that this is something that is costing us too much. You can see that from the Chief Justice, the DPP, the IG, EACC. We are seeing people coming together and saying, let's find a way, because corruption is extremely powerful. And while its victim might not be so obvious, so you won't say this is a victim of corruption, just like if somebody beat you up, you won't say it's a victim of corruption. However, if somebody was given the wrong medicine because somebody was bribed to bring in medicine that was not right and they died, you cannot count the number of victims. So when you see a convention of this magnitude with almost universal ratification by all the countries in the world, it shows that the world sees this as a crime. It's reaching almost to the proportion as a crime against humanity. Yes.
And Director, now, it is a question of corruption is a problem in the country. The laws that came with the 2010 constitution came with a very good chapter 6 that came to make sure that these things are handled. But on the other hand, on the flip side, Kenyans do not, might say, we do not understand who EACC is, what they do, what is their mandate. So who is EACC and what is your mandate? So that at any given time, someone says there's a problem, there is corruption happening somewhere, I do not pay, but I report to play my role in fighting corruption.
Thank you, Dennis, for that question. It is important for the public to understand that we have a number of institutions which are responsible for fighting corruption in Kenya. But EACC is the lead agency, established, as I said earlier, pursuant to the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. Now, EACC has a specific mandate. Its mandate is to combat corruption, prevent corruption, educate the public on the dangers of corruption, promote ethical standards, and also elicit support of the public. Through various mechanisms, it has a mandate to foster partnerships, and that's where EACC is working with the UNODC among other development partners, because there is realization that the fight against corruption cannot be won by one institution, cannot be won even by one government, because corruption is a white-collar crime. It is a crime which will be committed in Kenya. The process might be deposited in a different jurisdiction. You may find the assets from corruption going to a different country. The suspects, you find them in a different country. Witnesses who are supposed to assist you in a different country. And when you look at all this, then the need to work together, the need for partnership, the need for collaboration becomes very important. The biggest partner in the fight against corruption is the public. The public is the beneficiary of the fight against corruption. The public is in a position where you can receive reports, where you see what is happening. You can be able to provide reports to EACC. You can be able to provide reports to other organizations which deal with governance issues. And therefore, what we call upon is for members of the public to take keen interest in the fight against corruption, because corruption basically removes or takes away services from the public. It makes the cost of living high. It removes basic services which are supposed to be enjoyed by the public. It compromises infrastructure. It compromises job opportunities. It compromises the moral public in the society. And with all those evils, then it is very important for the public to play a critical role. But in terms of doing the specialized work, EACC has the capacity, working with other partners, to carry out very specialized investigations. We carry out both high-impact investigations. We carry out forensic investigations. We carry out bribery-related investigations. And we also assist institutions to review their work procedures, review their systems, help them to identify loopholes which facilitate corruption. There are organizations which exist, but they are operating some very weak systems, but at some point you might have very good staff. No corruption may take place because they have not been exploited. But immediately you get a motivated person who identifies those loopholes. They can still engage in corruption.
And I'll come to you as we talk about the need for all the agencies involved to speak in one voice. But let me come to you, Charity.
Thank you.
Now, here is a question where he's talking about collaboration, the need for everybody, including Kenyans, to come on board. You have come on board and you are assisting in terms of legal expertise to helping EACC to be able to know how to go about this. Now, tell us more about your contribution to EACC on legal aid.
So UNODC supports EACC in very many ways. We've been a partner with them from the beginning, from when they were formed, because, again, as I said, we are the secretariat, so we support member states that have ratified the convention. Kenya was actually amongst the very first, you know, just showing the fact that the willingness at the top, but it doesn't trickle down to the bottom. So what we do is we will bring them, so we work together with them to have either support them with study tours, assist, you know, for them to see what are the other countries, let's say South cooperation, not necessarily from Western countries, but what are other countries doing? What can they learn? What can they teach? And in fact, right now, EACC is known for its work in the whole region, and they are reaching out to other members of their organizations and supporting them. We also support with mutual legal assistance. We support sometimes through funding that comes in through different programs. One of those programs is the EU-funded PLEAD program. That's a wide program that looks into how we can really support the visibility and the growth of EACC to be the, you know, to continue to be the champion that it's supposed to be. And so what we are doing right now is things like supporting them with case management, issues of digitalization. You know, part of the problem with corruption is that the more the human hand is involved, the easier it gets. So the more people that are involved in the transaction. So that is one of the areas we are supporting them with. We also support them with, you know, their work when it comes to risk assessments. They do the risk assessment, but we could do some support to those risk assessments that they do to different institutions. And then they go to the institution and say, these are your loopholes. I think recently you did one with the judiciary, and they looked at it and they say, how are we going to be able to handle the areas that are open, you know, open doors for corruption. Also to understand that they can't do it alone. We are supporting the whole justice sector, so the DPP, for example, with the prosecution. He would need support on issues of prosecution, the judiciary, when it comes to the, you know, issues of adjudication. And finally, when it comes to what happens, and there are lots of things that have been happening that are really good and seeing in this country, say plea bargain, where people are able to turn on each other, give evidence, maybe you get a less sentence, but you lessen the amount of time the country spends on that case. If you see, these cases include so much documentation, and usually they take a very long time. However, if you motivate people to plea bargain, you're able to at least get some of the money back. Congratulating EACC for quite a bit of the work that they've done in returning the money back to the Kenyans in quite a number of the cases. And we continue to support them on areas such as education. Education is really important. As I said, we don't understand. You don't know that the 50 bob on the road makes a difference. Yeah? And we don't know that if you see amongst the young people, a recent study said that most of them actually say, I'll be a D student, I'll become rich, yeah? Why bother, you know? And because role models have shown them, you know, you can get away with it, yeah? But unless we change this culture, we are turning over our country to the next generation that is broken down in moral values. Because that money that you pay, say, to corrupt a police officer who is investigating a case means justice is not done to me. So just for people to say, this is how it affects me, and this is what me as a citizen of Kenya and me as a citizen of the world can contribute. We have fought wars against, you know, against lots of evils. This is a war that has to be fought from the inside, from your morality and understanding that it has a deep impact on this day and on the future. Say forestation, for example, climate change, you know, all those things, corruption impacts. Yeah.
And Director, now, here's a question where EACC, you've been mandated to deliver on specific agendas. Your KPIs are clear. This is what you're supposed to do. But here's a question where, let me paint a picture. I need to run for office. I have come to EACC for clearance because that is what the law demands. I come to EACC, I am declined. I don't get the certificate clearance from EACC because of ABCD. But you find that when I go to another agency that does investigations, I get certificate of good conduct. At that point, institutions that are supposed to be working together appear to be fighting each other. How then do we bring all the agencies working together, be it the DPP, be it the EACC, the DCI, the AG, and the Auditor General, to speak in one voice in the fight against corruption? Because if EACC has given a hint that so-and-so is not clean, why then do they get clearance from another agency?
Thank you, Dennis, for that question. Allow me just before I answer that question to highlight on one other very important mandate of the Commission, which is asset recovery. EACC recovers corruptly acquired assets and unexplained wealth. This is an area we have received a lot of capacity support, particularly in training our officers. And that is in line with what Charity has just indicated. It's an area where we are benefiting from very specialized training from UNODC and also the government of Kenya. Because the people who engage in corruption, in most cases, corruption being a white-collar crime, they are people who have gone to school. They are professionals in their own sense. By the time a scheme is laid and executed, it has been reviewed by professionals who went to the same school the EACC investigators went. And therefore, for you to be able to create that capacity where you can be able to diffuse and neutralize schemes of such professionals, the issue of very specialized training is important. And the EACC currently, as we speak, in the region, is a lead in the area of asset recovery. And the EACC has been able to recover, for example, in the last 5 years, assets worthy over 23 billion, which has already been reverted back to the public. EACC is also pursuing many cases of asset recovery in courts. In fact, EACC is pursuing in excess of 400 cases in our courts, with a view to recover assets worthy over 40 billion Kenya shillings. Once that is completed, this is money which is these are assets which will revert back. These are both cash, movable and immovable assets. And this, when you look at this strategy, the strategy removes the benefit of corruption from those who scheme and work very hard to enact these schemes of corruption. Once that benefit is removed, we have seen it serving as a demotivation to engage in the risk of engaging in corruption. And therefore, it's a strategy which is working. It is something we are calling upon the public to share information with EACC, where you have information about government assets which were previously owned by the government, which have since been turned private. Share that information with the EACC. EACC has the capacity to recover such assets. Coming to your specific question on the issues of clearance. One, let me first start by clarifying to members of the public. EACC does not issue clearance certificates because EACC deals with issues of integrity. Issues of integrity, your integrity is either there or not there. There is no fraction of it. There is no fraction of it. Today, you might be clean in the sense that you have not engaged in any corrupt conduct or unethical conduct. But immediately I walk out of this studio, I might engage in unethical behavior. If I had received a certificate from EACC as of the time I am here, and I walk out and commit a corruption offense, that certificate becomes invalidated. So what happens with EACC? We work with the different stakeholders, government bodies and any other person who is interested to get information regarding persons of interest. This could be persons seeking employment. This could be persons running for office. This could be persons being considered for privileged positions in the society. What we do is we provide information regarding such persons to that organization so that that information is put into consideration when the final decision is being made. For example, if you are appointing people for public office, that information will be provided to the appointing authority so that the appointing authority can consider that information and make a decision. If it is a question of persons running for elective position, EACC will provide information about persons who have shown interest, declared interest on various seats to the relevant body, which is the IEBC. Then it is for IEBC to utilize that information to make that decision. If it is information of criminal nature or something which would benefit another agency which is processing a similar matter, it will also be shared. There is information EACC shares with the DCI because the DCI is seized with certain investigative processes, and that information would be useful to them. EACC will share information even with the Auditor General, and the vice versa also happens. The Auditor General will share information with EACC, DCI will share. Other agencies of government, even the Kenya Revenue Authority, when it comes to issues of taxation, they are the experts. And therefore, when EACC is dealing with a person of interest, if a person is able to engage in corruption, the next question you will ask yourself is, if they are engaging in corruption, they are stealing from where they have been entrusted with public office. Is it possible then they are also paying taxes? Then our collaboration with KRA comes in. We go to KRA and try to find out whether that person who has demonstrated these tendencies, whether they are also paying taxes. More often than not, you will always find that they are not paying taxes or they are engaged in some tax cheats of some kind. And that information is shared. Same to the other agencies. And therefore, when a certain government body issues its information, even for DCI, and I don't want to speak for them, it is based on the records they have, because they maintain the criminal database. Any person who has been charged in a criminal case, their fingerprints will be with the DCI, and that is information they can provide to any other person. Who might be interested in that information. So the only thing which probably needs to be done to make it more efficient is to improve on the collaboration and the information sharing. Right now, all these various agencies are operating their own databases. These databases are currently not connected. They are not speaking to each other. And that idea of always requesting for information, then you may have problems of time in processing these requests.
Yes. And let's just take a short commercial break. When we come back, we see how then, as UNODC, we take this information to Kenyans together with the EACC so that they know what they ought to do. I will see you in a bit.
Kenya, twende mbele. NCBA, go for it.
So, Miriam, unaweza nitumia taxi ile unajua? Hello Grace.
Kidogo.
Kuna ile taxi ilikuleta kwa chama juzi, unaweza nitumia niende nayo? Ama hiyo namba yake.
Mara Moja Taxi, making your ride experience as simple as 1, 2, 3. First, download the Mara Moja Transport app. It's quick and easy. Browse through available drivers and pick your favorite. It's all about your comfort. Your ride is just a tap away. Sit back and relax as your driver makes their way to you. Discover hassle-free rides with Mara Moja Transport. Your journey simplified.
Kaimosi Friends
une seconde chance. Il n'est jamais.
Jampi mongala mwana mabe. Yomo sola kiso aplike bolingo me mingana. Zamba molili mwela lingana. Ezalite. Motongo ya michasinga na kingo balingi ya midiambika. Kolela te sama kambo eyaka.
Jampi.
Liberté, oya senga kase oya sana.
Renew your subscription today. Watch the big match, catch up on the news, enjoy our new drama series Pink Ladies, and the latest movies. Sing along to your favorite tunes to keep the good times rolling. See more, be more, do more. Star Times. Enjoy digital life.
KTN News. Get the whole story.
And many thanks for watching KTN News. Welcome back to this special coverage as we talk about corruption in the country and the world and how it is affecting you and I. And before we went on that break, Director was just telling us on what it is, their role, how corruption affects you. But now I'm coming to you, Charity. Now, as we talk about corruption, there is the aspect that for collaboration to happen, Kenyans need to be involved. And as UNODC and the support you're giving EACC, this gets to the common mwananchi down there, which begs the question, what is their role in a country where we seem to be celebrating the corrupt, where with the higher, the more corrupt you are, the easier it is for you to get public office?
So one of the things we have championed, and I'm very proud to have been part of this, is an initiative by EACC known as Integrity Champions in schools, where you have training for students and training for teachers, where integrity is taught, and you get champions to stand up and say, we stand up for integrity. And so far, we have quite a number of children involved in integrity clubs, getting back to the education system and saying, why should I have integrity? And what is my role in standing up against corruption? So we have, I'm happy to hear that there's a bill coming up, the whistleblowers bill, that's supposed to protect witnesses. People are very afraid to come forward. They're afraid of retaliation, especially in these big cases where important people are involved. However, now you can see that we have witness protection. We have more, we have more support from the institutions that they want to protect people who come forward. They want to protect your life. So when you do come, you get some form of protection. So we work on that. We also work on with them on issues of signage. Where can I report? So there are areas that you can report to EACC. There are those when it comes to police you can report to IPOA. There are lots of areas for reporting, but citizens either don't bother to report or are afraid to report. I would say if the seriousness that we should take this is, if you are being attacked, you have to participate in your own rescue. Nobody can come and rescue you unless you're also part of rescuing yourself. So I would say, Kenyans, you have to stand up against this. If you believe that we're having a problem, you cannot be part of that problem. You have to be strong, as people have been before, to stand up and say, I will not be kicked back, because somebody had a bit more money than I did. If we have that pride to stand forward and say, we can have integrity and it pays for me. That starts from the home to the school to all areas of public service. You are entitled to that and nobody should take that away from you. And if it happens, talk about it. One good thing about Kenya is that there's freedom of expression. People can talk. And I love the fact that Kenyans talk that much. Compared to our neighbors, many neighboring countries like the fact that Kenyans can whistle blow and they get to know this is a problem that is happening. So I would say Kenyans, do not take this lightly. This is a crime against yourself, your children, your future. So stand up and fight and participate in your own rescue. Yeah.
Now, Director, as she talks about that, I would want you to add on that, but even while at it, let's talk about your capacity as EACC in terms of allocation from the national government and the independence of EACC. How is this viewed out there, especially from the higher officers, from people that you're investigating? How does your independence help you do your job, or lack of it affect your job?
Thank you, Dennis, for that question. Let me say EACC is a constitutional commission, and it receives its funding direct from the consolidated fund. Of course, there is the normal process of appropriating budget. So EACC does not fall under our ministry. EACC receives its funding direct from the National Assembly. EACC has been accorded opportunities by the National Assembly through the various committees to make proposals for budgetary allocations. The budgetary allocation provided, it is something EACC is grateful because it has continued to be supported by the government over the years. However, just like in all the other sectors, it is not sufficient. But government has been expending in excess of 3.4 billion annually in the last 5 years towards the fight against corruption as budget for EACC, something which should not be taken for granted. Through that, EACC has been able to utilize those resources to carry out a number of programs aimed at protecting public resources. Because when you look at the recoveries, as I indicated, those recoveries, when you look at them, they almost match to a fraction or slightly higher than the budgets allocated. And therefore, when you look at that approach, asset recovery alone, you would say EACC is actually able to recover or protect public resources in excess of the budget which is utilized in running its operations. But it is not enough. It has also been working with partners such as UNODC and others to supplement that budget. The way partners have been working with EACC is through mainly capacity building. And the capacity building programs are mainly aimed at creating specialized skills, bringing specialized skills to the staff working in EACC. When we look at the independence, considering that this budget is coming from the National Assembly, you start to see the fact that it is being given an opportunity to defend its own budget. There is no much interference, despite the fact that we are saying the budget is not enough. On the reporting of its programs, again, EACC is independent. It reports to the National Assembly, and it reports through various ways. One, it's through its annual report, through statutory quarterly reports, and through various parliamentary committees. EACC will be invited in Parliament from time to time to discuss on the topical issues affecting the public, which in the considered opinion of the National Assembly, EACC will be able to take corrective action for purposes of the public. That has continued to happen, and is something EACC continues to forge that positive relationship. In terms of its programs, EACC has now prosecutorial powers, so it carries out independent investigations, and upon carrying out independent investigations, these investigation files are forwarded to the Director of Public Prosecution, which again is another independent constitutional office, which reviews these files independently and makes informed decision. And to that extent, you would say then the work EACC does is also reviewed professionally. Then after that, the DPP again will also proceed to the courts. And because we are seeing EACC with the capacity to carry out professional investigations, where the Director of Public Prosecution can weigh the evidence independently and give consent for prosecution, It tells you of the quality of capacity which is available in EACC. And through that, many cases have been taken to court. In the last 5 years, about 655 high-impact cases have been completed. And out of that, have been completed and filed in various courts. Out of the various cases in courts, about 231 of them have been concluded in courts. And I want to share with Kenyans that out of the cases which have been concluded in courts, which basically cuts across the various segments of the society, we have persons who are highly placed in government, people we call politically exposed persons. Those are people at the level of governors, ministers, permanent secretaries, CEOs, accounting officers. We also have technical officers. We also have petty corruption cases. About 230 of those cases have been completed, have been concluded in courts with over 80% conviction rate. So when you look at that, and the review process, you investigate independently, the prosecution is independent from you, the adjudication is independent, then you start to appreciate the professional nature. And over time, the officers EACC has been able to employ has exposed them to very highly specialized training. In fact, the officers you find in EACC, they would match any professionals in other similar high-quality investigative agencies the world over. Thank you.
Now, Charity, in terms of EACC has all these stats on what it is doing. It is incredible what it is they're doing. And now, what do you think needs to be done for EACC to be able to even do better moving forward? What is my role, the role of the government, the role of UNODC in holding their hands and saying, you are our champions, let's do this together for you to achieve?
So one thing I must highlight is that they don't work alone, just as you said. Justice is a chain. So under the National Council of Administration of Justice, a committee has been formed. I believe EACC will be the chair. And this committee consists across the board, including civil society. Everybody gets involved in coming up with suggestions of how to get better. Looking at the judiciary, they have what they call specialized courts for corruption. And these courts are specific to corruption cases, and that's why you're seeing more cases actually getting out, because the Chief Justice has assigned specific judges to handle these cases. No delay, at least not from the judiciary. No delay from the prosecution. The prosecution has its own particular section that deals with anti-corruption and DCI, and we are seeing more and more of them coming together to combat this. As I always say, together you'll go far, alone, together alone you'll go fast, but you'll go far when you're together. So one of the things that we need to do is the rest of the justice institutions, including the government, the executive arm of government, should continue to support EACC. They are short of staffing, which they need. I mean, they have decentralized, but they need to go further, especially now that we have a lot of county corruption. There needs to be more representation of EACC outside. They have the representation, but they need to be, more available. They need the specialized, equipment that they need to investigate. They need, and I must agree with him about the quality of people who come from EACC. Some of them have gone on to become judges in this country. Some of them have gone on to work in other international institutions. They have a very good skill set and very committed people, but they need more support. You cannot give them that role and not give them the support that they need to succeed. And that support has got to go across the board in order for him to succeed, in order for investigations from any part to succeed, and from the Kenyans to win. They need to win. So we need to win together. So for the Kenyans, you need to report, you need to be strong enough, brave enough to come forward, or strong enough, brave enough to resist, the request for corruption. Then for the civil society, you have your role. You have to be able to flush people out, support them. For the rest of the justice sector, let us work together. Yeah, and that's the way that they will win.
Director, briefly, in a minute and a half, tell us about the International Day that will be observed and what that means.
Thank you. As I said earlier, the 9th, which is falling on Saturday, will be the International Anti-Corruption Day. And this commemoration this year will be commemorated in Murang'a County. Specifically, it will be commemorated within the Murang'a University of Technology grounds. We will have various stakeholders under the umbrella of the Kenya Leadership and Integrity Forum. This is a forum which brings together about 20 sectors. This is both the executive, the EACC, the legislature, the civil society, the development partners, the faith sector, the media, yourselves. All these sectors have come together under the Kenya Leadership and Integrity Forum. And under that framework, we will be commemorating the International Anti-Corruption Day. EACC will take lead. The theme has already been given by the UNODC, which is UNICAC at 20, because the United Nations Convention Against Corruption is now 20 years, because it was first ratified in 2003. And therefore, we are basically just calling upon all Kenyans, one, to participate. Not everybody will need to come to Murang'a, but they need to take time just to reflect on the fight against corruption and their role, specific role, because all these sectors, the media has a critical role. It has a very good capacity to educate the public, bring the information, share with the public, blow the whistle, so that members of the public can move with us.
That is Jackson Mue, OGW, Director of Field Services and Coordination, EACC, and Ms. Charity Kagwe, Head of Crime Prevention, Criminal Justice and Anti-Corruption Program, Eastern Africa, UNODC, as we have this conversation about corruption, its effects, and what your role is together. If we come together, we are able to fight this gruesome fight against corruption. My name is Dennis Aseto. Many thanks for keeping us here and for us to be able to bring you these. Ashley Mazuri will be bringing you the primetime news in a few. Enjoy the rest of your viewing. Good evening.